Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Power of Man podcast. That's right, the Power of Man podcast, folks. As I record this, we have just passed our 400th episode. It was a huge milestone for us to hit. I've done over 2,000 interviews for all my podcasts combined and my guest appearances and everything else, but I've never hit 400 on any one podcast. You all know this is our flagship, and this is the one that started it all, and this is the one that is so near and dear to my heart, folks. So are you. And without you, we aren't sitting here today. So I want to thank you all for the subscribing, the liking, the sharing, the DMs. And I know I have a ton of DMs I got to get back to you guys on, but I do them all myself. So I'm going to get back to you. I promise. Hang in there. All right. It's really me talking. So we'll get back to you guys, but I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart. Now, if you're a friend of the program, and I know you are, yes, I have a different cup. Okay. My red cup, my IU cup that I love dearly, that's always on the show. It's in the wash. Okay, I have to wash my cup once in a while, so I don't need 50 DMs going, what happened to the red cup? I love you guys, but AO. All right. So here we go. All right. I'm using my Right Path cup. Okay. It's from one of my other podcasts, but it still has the same thing inside of it. And you guys all know what that is. That's right. It's Freedom Hill Coffee. At Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up and check them out. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful, just like my wife. Folks, they brew a mean cup of joe. It's a fantastic cup of coffee. They do all the right things for all the right reasons, including supporting veterans. And you all know how important that is to us here at the Power Man podcast. If you're a veteran out there, I want to thank you and your family for your service. If you aren't out there doing what you're doing, they would have shut me down a long time ago. And I know that for a fact because they have tried multiple times. But you folks went out there, you ensured our freedoms, you fought for our country. And you know what? We get to actually have freedom of speech and a lot of other stuff that goes with it because of you. And I love you. And I'm so glad you found a home here at the Power Man. And Freedom Hill Coffee feels the same way. Folks, Freedom Hill Coffee. At Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Check them out and look them up and tell them Power of Man sent you. Let me get one more sip of this fine brew before I try to keep up with this young buck on the other side of the table from me. Guys talking to me about running marathons and stuff, and I'm over here going, wow, all right. All right, folks, we got a great guest with us today. He belongs on this show. He is a midlife transition expert, which I think I probably need. But he's also a speaker. He is an author, and he's the host of the hit podcast, Life in Transition. Please welcome Art Blanchford to the Power of Man podcast. Art, how you doing, brother?
Hey Roy, I'm doing great, and it's really great to be with you. And I'm learning from you, listening just in this little bit we're listening together, and I love it. I love the passion that you have and what you're bringing to your audience, and really glad to be here. Really glad
Thank
to
you.
be here.
Thank you for that, man. I got to tell you that I get comments on my voice all the time. You have got an awesome voice for a podcast, man. I mean, you're like, yeah, that's right. How's everything going? I mean, seriously speaking, I mean, it's
uh,
almost, I don't know if it's like a cross between Stallone and like maybe Dirty Harry, but it's,
yeah, this
you
it's
know,
something. I got to tell you a little funny story about this. When I was in high school, um, one of my teachers was her husband ran the local radio, the local AM radio station. And she said, "Hey, you've got a voice for radio. You need to be on the radio." And I'm like, "Hey, anything to make a buck," right? When I'm
right?
in high school. So I went down to WHS in Cookeville, Tennessee and did a tryout. And yeah, I've got this great voice, but there's a little problem. They had the ticker tape coming off that I was supposed to be reading the news off a dot matrix printer. Some of you are old enough to remember dot matrix printers, right? So as it's coming off, I'm supposed to be reading it. And this is all this stuff going on in the Middle East. And I have a good voice, but I can't read. So that was my only chance at radio. Now podcast I can go with the flow of the conversation, but if you give me something to read and try to read and talk at the same time, forget it. I'm not that talented. So that was my one stint in radio.
I love that. Yeah, man. Podcasting, you're in control of all of that stuff.
Yep.
So I
Yep.
love that. Art, that's a great story. And I tell you what, I know you got a lot more. And I mean, your story from
Yeah.
start to finish is really something.
Yeah.
Let's do this. I'm going to throw it to you. Art, tell us a little bit about who is Art Blanchford and, kind of what your story is and what led you to where you are today, brother.
Yeah. Thank you, Roy. I really appreciate it. I mean, I'm going to start where we are now. Like what really drives me right now today is helping midlife men find meaning. And how I do that is by showing up as my authentic self, letting God flow through me to connect with other men. But that's been a long road to get there, and a hard road to get there. And on the outside, like so many of us, in my 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s, looked absolutely perfect. Right, had the right job, the right car, you know, 3 kids, beautiful wife, beautiful home, and life was good. But I was doing a lot of things out of fear and I'm feeling not like I wasn't enough, like I had to earn my worth and belonging, even in my marriage, even with my kids, even in my career, which again, I think is a lot of us get in that space. And luckily, I would say luckily, even though it's been a very difficult 5 years for that transition from that big corporate executive to where I am now, but luckily my body shut down at COVID because I've been running more or less around the world once or twice a month, living all over the world, flying once or twice a month around the world, literally, and running big organizations for 25 years, pretending that I was above gravity and above sleep
Hmm.
and, Superman, pretending I was Superman.
Right.
And when COVID came, it shut me down. And I got into recovery with Workaholics Anonymous with a little help from my wife. And I had been dissatisfied for a long time. I didn't realize even at that point how much I was running out of fear. Right. You and
Right.
I had this little trigger from Westfield, Indiana about going back to the cult that I was raised in.
Yeah.
And I learned there at a very young age in a very traumatic situation to please the man. If I want to be safe, please the man.
Right.
Right. And that served me really well in business because in big corporations, right, you can answer the question your boss or your customer has before they can ask it. You do really well. And I did
Right on.
really well, but sort of for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
So my journey the last 5, 6, 7 years has been about discovering my own authenticity. What do I really want? Where do I belong? How can I serve in the second half? And that's it's been a long arc. I mean, if you look on my LinkedIn profile, you think, wow, this guy is a super stud in business. Yeah, I was, but I don't think that's actually what I was built for. This is what I was built for. This is the purpose, right? Is to have these authentic connections and really help other men to also get to know themselves, connect with each other, and get clarity for what they're built for, what they are made for, what's their purpose in the second half of life, and how they're going to serve, and to
Yeah.
find joy and adventure and connection in doing that.
Man, I mean, talk about unpacking a lot.
Yeah. So there's a whole but, and I try not to take up the whole show telling the story. I could
I
take the
mean,
whole show telling the story, but
boom. Yeah, exactly. I
yeah,
tell you what, I love whenever I have somebody on here who is, doing some kind of coaching or doing some sort of, helping, anything like that. When I hear it coming from the heart and I hear that, hey, I want to be the thing that I needed
right.
when I was
Yeah.
going through my low time, that fills my heart because I
Yeah.
know that that's the type of thing that's going to work.
Right.
I know that's the type of thing that is successful when men
Right.
approach it from that angle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, that's got to be tough to be doing that because you don't have a ton of time. It doesn't sound like between collapse, like recovery, and now the coaching. Are you still kind of coaching from that wounded spot a little bit?
No. And that's a great question. Thank you.
Sure.
And I haven't answered that question before, but it's very clear no, which is great actually, because
Excellent.
I have done the work, brother. And last year, even, man, I was walking through it. Like last year was probably the toughest year I've had. Not the toughest from fear, anxiety, or stress, but toughest from a dark walking through the valley of the shadow of death, right?
Hmm.
But the difference is that I know that I need to walk through that in order to get the other side and serve the other people in the right way. And I have really good connection. So I'm living what I talk about. Like when I, was coming back from the gym last summer in my truck, just crying for no reason, right? And thinking, what the hell? But I have, 10 guys on speed dial I can call and say, I don't want to go in my house because I'm bawling my eyes out for no reason, but can we talk for a minute? Yeah, let me tell my board meeting to put you on pause and I'll talk to you for an hour, right? That's the kind of friends that I have.
Love it.
And because of that, I could walk through that. And I'm not like where I'm offering from now is not a place of need and not a place of damage. It's a place of vulnerability, yes, and rawness and real. Um, but it's not coming out of damage, but coming out of being clear and centered now and letting in my words, letting God move through me to be
Hmm.
able to serve others. Be able to This is one way I love to phrase it is my purpose, like my job is to see other men so clearly that they see reflected back to them the wonderful, strong, powerful, beautiful, centered, grounded, capable man that they are.
Wow. Wow. That's powerful, brother. And I love that. I really do. That's man, you're doing the right thing. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. I can see it already,
Yeah,
coming
thank
from
you.
you.
Yeah. And I
I
wouldn't have felt that way even last year, the year before, even though I was doing the podcast and doing all this other stuff. It's been in this last 6 months that everything has just dropped in, has just, precipitated. There's a precipitation point, right? Where you add, okay, I'm an engineer, I'm a geek as well, right? So, but you add solids to a liquid and it's liquid, 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 liquid. And then one more grain of sand and it falls out.
Right.
And it's that one grain of sand that I experienced, I feel like this March actually, when I was out at my place in New Mexico, hiking up out of the Rio Grande Gorge, where it just all clicked. And it's like, this is what you've been going through all this for, and all this, everything else is preparation. And this event, which we now call the crossing,
Mm.
this is how it's pulling all together.
Okay, so this thing that this catalyst for you,
Mm-hmm.
this is something that you share with your coaching students at this point.
Yes.
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 Okay,
Yeah.
tell us
So
about that.
yeah. So I have. I mean, I'm going to start with the crossing because that's what's the catalyst point for me. So the
Hmm.
crossing. This is so cool, and I love this because I'm such a strong believer, and it's not even believer. There's so much research on this and so much data about the power of nature to connect with us and let us to open up. So I spend a lot of time in nature. I'm hiking the Appalachian Trail right now. I'm doing a bunch of different stuff. I spend a lot of time running trails and biking. But I was out. I have a place in New Mexico, and I was out there in March, as I always am with spring break with my son, going skiing. And I went down that morning, Friday morning, before we were leaving on Saturday, and I went to the Rio Grande Valley, Rio Grande Gorge. I was going to go to a hot springs, but there was a bunch of people already there, and so I'm like, okay, I'll just hike out. So I hiked up the Rio Grande Gorge to meet the sun up on the top. Sunrise coming up right there. Feeling, doing my morning practices that I always do, my prayers, my meditation, my asking for guidance, inventory. Come back down, and I get to the river. The sun's now shining down on the river, and it just all clicked in. Like, wow, this is the spot, and this is the place for you to help guide other men through what you've been through the last 5 years, and not so they don't have to feel so alone and be in this liminal space so long. And this is what we call the crossing. And this is an event for men that are successful enough to recognize success isn't enough, right? And they want an authentic connection with themselves, with other men, with the men in the room, with nature, with God, and with clarity of purpose for the future. And this all just dropped in like right at that one moment. I made a little video of it because I wanted to capture it, and nothing polished. I'm in my old hat and old flannel shirt. But that's so clear. And I have that first one that's coming. It's coming up in August right now. It's almost sold out. But it just to be so clear about the gift I can give and how I can help people through also the power of nature to really connect with themselves and to realize, like, one of the things I realized early in my journey of letting go of my big corporate career, of letting go of all of this ego and self-importance that I had built around, is that life is not a grand monument to be built. It's an unfolding adventure to be lived, to be experienced. It's a completely different approach to life. Like, I was doing the typical, like, building the big career, the cars, the resumes, the power, saving my money. It's all about the end game, all about when I was going to arrive and when I was going to retire and then have fun. That's the biggest effing lie that we've ever been told.
Right.
Life is a continuous adventure, and there's no saving up for the future to make something happen in the future. So all of that coming together to integrate the things that I love and how I can serve others as well. Being nature, authentic connection, community, and really helping men to move forward.
Wow. I love what you're doing now. I guess as you look back at how you got to this spot, I'm sure that there's a lot of folks who want to kind of dig into different areas of this, but
Yeah.
we all suffer hurt. When we're younger, when we're growing up, things like that.
Yes.
Sometimes it's an abusive parent.
Yep.
Sometimes it's a cult. My goodness. Yeah, not to diminish that, my gosh, but it's when we realize that that's what we're dealing with. I think that becomes kind of a big deal. And when you had that episode during COVID, where the physical body kind of crashed, was that
Yes.
also when you realized what you've been carrying around spiritually, or was that a separate issue, a different awakening?
Yes and no, both. I mean, yeah, it started me on a deep spiritual walk with 12-step recovery with Workaholics Anonymous. That realization that I wasn't Superman. But the spiritual awakening, that was April of 2020. In August of 19, I had gone to a monastery. My first visit to New Mexico was the Christ in the Desert Monastery. out of sort of desperation that and I took a silent retreat, 5 day silent retreat, and I had some very deep spiritual epiphanies there. At the same time, I was doing therapy, a lot of EMDR, like PTSD type of therapy, and which I didn't think that like I needed, but my therapist thought that I did, and it turns out because I saw so much abuse when I was a kid, but I don't remember much of it happening to me, so I thought it didn't apply. But I didn't realize that seeing one of your other family members being really abused or other people being really abused and not having any power to do anything about it and not being comforted afterward, it's just as damaging. So I realized that a lot of my business success was built out of pleasing the man from that experience. So all of these things were converging around the same time when I was late, 48, 49, 50 years old. And so there was spiritual and physical, emotional awakenings happening all at the same time there. And it was very, at first it was very discouraging because, the descent is very discouraging because I felt, that I was falling apart, that I couldn't handle it anymore, that I'm not Superman anymore. Like if my company finds out that I'm sick, they're going to fire me. When they did find out I'm sick, they're like, no, don't even go on disability because we need you. And we don't want someone to know that you're sick because you're a public company. It's a big public company. But, so all of this stuff was happening at the same time. And I've always loved personal growth. I've always loved personal development. I did my first, personal growth workshop when I was 17 called the Institute for Self-Actualization. And I always had that behind me, but I had used it in my first, 25 years, or 35 years even of personal growth. I had used it to optimize the performance machine to serve the model that I still thought was right, which was, get the good job, make a lot of money,
Right.
provide well, and, then retire and be happy. Right. Which is just, as I said, it's big BS. So I started to unpack all of that, in that time when I was, late 40s, early 50s. And then really led me on this journey, which has been now, I'm 54 and now, so it's, 6-year journey to be where I am now, where I'm finally really clear about my life and living a life that's true to me, that's authentic to me, not what I feel like it should be. It's
Mm.
very different.
Yeah, that's big. That's a very big thing to discern. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And I
Wow.
think it's something that for me, everyone's like, well, just do what you want to do. Not everybody has that luxury because we do have to have enough money to live for sure. But
Right.
the bigger question for me and the more difficult question is, okay, what do I really want to do? What is it that lights me up? And it's not because it's not like, oh, I want to go out drinking or I want to, watch football. No, like what am I really about? That's a big question. That's a primary question in life. And I think it's, you can't answer it fully unless you've been willing to do your own internal work. And I think that's why a lot of people actually avoid it. They just do sort of what's expected because that's easier than doing the internal work to say, okay, what really are my gifts? What really lights me up? What would give me sustainable energy? What would put me in the flow? Right? If you talk about the research about being in the flow state, right? And those things are deeper questions that take longer to answer. And where I'm sitting right now, I wouldn't have been able to say this with so much confidence 1 year ago, but where I'm sitting right now, it's 100% worth it to be able to come to the other side of that. And I'm sure
Nice.
I'll have other dark valleys and other times as I go forward, right? The work never ends.
Right.
But right now, I'm living a life so much more authentically than I ever have before. It feels really good.
Yeah. I can tell by the smile on your face, man.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Rory.
Just
Appreciate
as you're
it.
telling the story.
Yeah. And so I do that, the crossing. I coach other business executives and business owners.
Okay.
But it's holistic, right? It's about life as a whole because even with businesses and business owners, the issues are always interpersonal, and interpersonal issues, the way to solve them is always to start with ourselves.
Right.
So I know a lot about business. I've run multi-billion-dollar organizations. I understand that stuff. I understand leadership very well, and I also understand that for a client to take his business or her business to a new level requires them to change how they see themselves and to heal what they need to heal in themselves that's in the way. Jerry Kalana calls it, the author of Reboot, he calls it getting the ghosts out of the machine, which I like pretty well, right? Getting
Right.
the blockages out so that we can be more clear. So I do that, and then I also do the podcast, which I love, and then I have these cohort coaching to midlife transition mastery, which is a 12-month program that we walk through together with these 8 steps of mastering midlife transition, which again is just from my experience of what I stepped through to try to find solid ground when I felt like everything was falling away from underneath me.
Right.
Yeah, so those are the primary things I do, and then help my kids. I have 3 adult kids, but 2 of them are still in college, and my wife is launching her dream business after 25 years of raising the kids. So
Wow.
we're launching a restaurant down here in Fernandina Beach. That's why we moved here, Rory, that we talked about a minute ago.
Yeah.
So Coastal Tea Cafe. She's a tea connoisseur. We lived in China and Europe, and she's done all the study and learning about that. And growing up as a Southern girl, and always having iced tea is a big part of it. So we have a hot and iced tea cafe, breakfast and lunch, opening up here in the fall. So getting to play with that as well, and our relationship is growing so much more real and so much closer because of getting to do business together as well. So
There you go.
it takes a higher level of engagement where you really have to
Yeah.
be open and honest with each other and willing for each other to be uncomfortable to do that. So that's also been a great boon. And so we're 32 years married now and have the best relationship we've ever had. And yeah, life is good.
I'm so happy to hear that for you, man. I mean, what's it like with you building your business and she's building her business sort of at the same time? I mean, there isn't like that steady rock to lean on, between the two of you.
No, I mean that's true. I mean, I guess if you talk about there's a couple steady rocks. Our relationship is one,
Good
right?
answer.
And it really is. I mean, we have a planning meeting every week. We take 2 hours and talk about. And we start with what's going on in our relationship. How have you felt seen this week? How have you not felt seen this week? How's our relationship doing on a scale of 1 to 10? And then we of course get into the business stuff and the relationships with the kids and so forth. But our relationship is one that's absolute solid rock. Like in my late 30s, I burned all of our retirement savings in a business that failed.
Oh, wow.
And that was a wonderful experience. Very expensive, but a wonderful experience in hindsight because I got to see the relationship was a rock. I got to see that I did not, for the first time in my life, to experience a little bit that I did not have to earn love and belonging. Because at that moment, I couldn't earn it.
Yeah.
And my wife was the planner and the detailed one, and she was raising 3 little kids at the time, and I didn't know how we are going to pay the rent, and she didn't kick me out. She said, "Yeah, that's great. We'll figure it out. We're in this together." Right.
Wow.
So that was a beautiful experience of starting to experience for the first time that I didn't have to earn my love and belonging with performance. And since that point, I've always felt like a relationship was a rock, but it's 100% solid rock. I've carried her, she's carried me. She's the one that pushed me to get in Workaholics Anonymous when I needed it. And she pushed me at a time where I could hear it. So that's really beautiful. So that's number 2. From a financial perspective, I saved a lot of money when I was making a lot of money in corporate world. I put a lot of it away so that I'm not worried about starving
Good
anytime
for
soon.
you.
Right. And that does give a degree of flexibility, and it also makes it a lot easier for banks to finance your ventures if you have a savings account that can cover the loan if they need it. Right. Banks give you money when you don't really need it. It's hard to get it when you really need it, but so it does make
Right.
things a lot easier to have that as well. But the main rock, I would say, is really our relationship, and then also our faith as well. Like to know that there's reasons for things, and that God's using us in the way that that if we're willing to follow God's will, that's going to work out in a way that maybe we can't imagine,
Yeah.
in a good way that maybe we can imagine. So, yes, it's busy. Yes, it's uncertain. Having 2 or 3 businesses, if you count real estate, going at the same time, and none of them making tons of money yet. Um, and yet it's fun, and it's life, and we're doing it together. And we hope that that's also inspiring our kids and our parents as well to say, hey, there's, like my father-in-law's 80, 81, and he's talking to me about what's the next chapter. And I love it, like, okay, I'm just figuring out what's next, he's out in my place in New Mexico right now. Took the RV, him and his wife, and driving cross country, and they're out in New Mexico with the RV and heading out to Colorado, and they're living a great life. But to be, to be continually uncovering, how how can I best be used? How can I best serve? What brings me joy? What can I do that's going to feel really good that really benefits others? And can continually be asking those questions and leaning into those instead of stopping and feeling depressed and watching TV, which is what a lot of people do at midlife. You know, the average retired person in the United States watches 47 hours of TV a week. Yeah, can
I
you
believe
imagine?
that, but yeah, when you
Right?
actually hear those numbers, it's like, how
Yeah,
could you
right.
possibly?
But so it
Yeah,
feels really good to be an example of not doing it that way and
yeah,
not being totally, flippant or irresponsible, but like living life. And if it doesn't work out, well, things have a way of working out even when they don't work out.
right. Amen.
So,
You just mentioned God's will. You don't have
yeah.
to, talk about it if you don't want to, but does faith play a part in what you do?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, in 12 step, the whole thing is to admit that my life was unmanageable,
Yeah,
right? And to recognize that there's power greater than myself that can restore me to sanity. And step three, be willing to turn my will and my life over to that higher power,
yeah,
right? And to me, that's the whole walk now, right? And you can call it whatever you want. You can call it internal guidance, you can call it universe, you can call it God, but without me recognizing that I'm part of something much bigger than myself and that there's meaning that I can't see maybe at the moment
yeah,
in things. Yeah, it makes a huge difference. I mean, that's why every morning starts with prayer and meditation and inventory and guidance and asking for guidance and I end my morning practice every morning with God, what do you want me to be today? And I have a clear enough channel. I get an answer every morning,
there you go.
and like this morning, it was strong and present. Right? Some mornings it's love, some mornings it's presence, whatever. But this is what I want you to be. This is what I want you to embody and to hold today. And then what do you want me to do today? And often the to do will even be, well, I want you to do the things that you've already come up with in the earlier parts of the check in, because I do a check in with all four parts of myself too. Body, what do you need today? Emotional self, what do you need today? Intellectual self, what do you need today? Or intellect or mind. All right, spirit, embodied spirit, like the spiritual part of myself. What's your guidance?
Yeah,
And I'll ask the spirit what they need. I ask, what's the guidance? Because I want the spiritual part to be making the decisions for the other three. Because
right,
otherwise, the other three parts or aspects of myself can make decisions that are sub optimized
right.
for them and not for the whole, right? And my emotional eating is not good for my physical body or my mental or emotional state, or my mental state. But the emotional stuff wants to do that. Well, let's try to get the spirit to make that decision instead of just the emotional self. So often I have a lot of clarity already what I'm doing, but if not, then I'll ask what are the things that are important for me to do today as well. And of course, I have a lot of meetings and stuff on the calendar, but I always, whatever the being is, I really try to hold that space for the whole day, whatever God's given me guidance for that
Nice.
morning.
Nice. I love that. All right, man. Yeah, you're living very deliberately, and I can
Yes.
tell. And that was one of the reasons why I asked that question. I know a little something about alcohol or Workaholics Anonymous, as well
Mm-hmm.
as Alcoholics Anonymous from family and stuff. And it does all circle back to
Right.
things that are bigger than you.
Yeah.
And I think one of the parts there is realizing that you aren't carrying the entire world, nor do you have to.
100%.
Right?
100%. And that's such a big thing about, I talked earlier about thinking I was Superman, thinking
Hmm.
about gravity didn't apply to me. And that's just such a awful, egotistical, understandable, horrible thing, right? Because it's, when I think, in Workaholics Anonymous, we have these affirmations, 30 affirmations, one for each day of the month. And the one that I think about right here is there's nothing. This is really hard for like a big business executive, with kids and everything else. There's nothing I have to do and nowhere I have to go.
Right. Because it's a
Right?
choice.
Because it's a choice.
Yeah. Right
It's
on.
not obligation. When we hold it as an obligation, we're the ones with our own thinking that made it into an obligation, that tied ourselves to the mill wheel before we jumped in the river. Right?
Right.
So that's so powerful to remember.
Yeah.
Right? Even, of course, with every job, there's aspects of it that are uncomfortable or hard that I maybe don't want to do. But I know that by doing those, I'm choosing, and by doing those, I get to the result that I want to have. Right? I think about like when I first started doing distance running, you know, I did not want to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go do my 20-mile run in the 90-degree heat, with 90% humidity.
Right.
I didn't. And I knew if I wanted to run the marathon at the speed I wanted to run it, that's what I had to do. So I did it anyway. A much higher level game, though, is to learn to love running 20 miles at 4 a.m. in the heat. And that's where I am now. I love running. I love biking. Even here in Florida, it's even hotter in Tennessee, where I lived for a long time. Right? It's a sauna. And that's why my wife says, hey, honey, you get a sauna at the same time you run. Good for you. Right? So I look forward to it. I built an outdoor shower so I don't have to sweat up the whole house when I get back. I just run in shorts so I don't have anything else dripping all over me. And I go run down to the beach and run up the beach and run through the forest and the jungle and run back. And I'm learning to love the humidity here as well, right? Because that's what it is. So yes, there's certain things, and in my work right now too, there's certain things that I avoided a lot in the past. But in doing those, like recognizing, okay, if I want to really be able to help, then I have to reach out to them. That's part of it.
Right.
All right. And I have to be persistent, and I have to have the courage to have authentic conversations with them and call them on their shit if I see that what's going on, even if I don't want to. Well, and I'm doing that now. What I'm starting to see is I really actually want to as well. By me having the courage to have those authentic connections, I'm the one that gets to benefit by having authentic connections. And it's really wonderful, and something beautiful always comes out of it, especially if I let go of the outcome of the conversation.
Mm.
Right, which
That's
is
important.
a big thing
Right.
from faith and letting go of control, right? The
You got it.
surrender or the serenity prayer, right?
Right.
So that's yeah. So those are some of the things that I'm working on right now, and yeah, and mostly, you know, in the daily life, can I show up in a way that's beneficial to me and to others in the daily interactions at the grocery store, at the gym, with my daughter, with my wife, when my son calls on the phone, when I'm at church, when I'm going out to eat, when I'm talking to somebody on the beach? Can I show up and enjoy life and enjoy their connection and give them my full attention and not be distracted and not be plugged in? Am I picking up the litter when I'm out running to make the world a little bit nicer as I'm running by some plastic that's otherwise going to end up in the ocean? So am I noticing life to start with? Am I aware? I'm looking out the windows here for those guys listening on the podcast, like looking out at the live oaks and the palm trees outside my windows. Am I aware of what's going on around me? And am I showing up and being able to do what life asks for me in that moment, which is only possible if I'm healed enough and present, healed enough to not be triggered and present enough to notice what's going on.
Wow.
So that's sort of my daily walk right now.
Nice. Nice. Now your coaching program, you
Yeah.
said that it's a 12-month coaching program.
Yes.
So it's a long term.
Yes.
It's an intense coaching program. Are you walking men through what you're going through now, or what you went through before?
It's both because
Okay.
I'm still on the journey. Right. So, but a lot of the men in the MLTM, this midlife transition mastery cohort coaching program, a lot of them are wrestling with feeling like they've lost their mojo or feeling like they're not interested in their career anymore. And why is that? They're at the peak of their success and yet something's missing. Right. And a big part of the midlife transition mastery, what I hear from the clients, a big part of it is just being in another group of guys to acknowledge that and to see and be seen like, wow, I'm not the only one that is feeling unsatisfied when I feel guilty about that or even shame because I have everything that I thought I should have. And so I should be happy. I should be content. But I'm not. And there's no one I can talk to about it because everyone looks at my life from the outside and thinks it's fantastic. It's incredibly isolating. So a big part of this is just opening up the conversation and realizing it's okay to say, yeah, I've killed this part of life and that's great. And I want something different. And it's okay to want something different. And it's okay to start to let go of the monuments that we built to ourselves in the first half. But you need to see an example of other people that you feel like are similar to you to feel safe in doing that. So
I
that's a
like it.
big part of that class. And we work through this 8 steps to master midlife transition. And we also talk about health and relationships and planning as the other key blocks in that 12-month period. So there's a lot of good information, but there's even more good connection and seeing each other, which is really valuable for the clients in those cohorts.
Nice. When we were talking beforehand, we were talking about, the writing that you've done. And I know that
Hmm.
you did,
Yep.
the 8 steps to mastering midlife transition as a, sort of an accompanying program with your
Yes.
coaching program.
Yeah.
And so, that's wonderful. You also decided that you wanted to put something out there for your kids.
Yes.
Tell everybody what you did there.
Yeah. So when I was moving back from being president of Autoleaf China, a big multi-billion-dollar company, segment of a company in China, and at the time my kids were 13 to 8, something like that, and I was in my oldest boys. I was thinking a lot already about what it meant, what it means to be a man. What are the lessons that I wish somebody had taught me? And I thought, you know what? I moved from an incredibly demanding job in the same company to a much less demanding job coming back to the US. And I thought, this is a good time for me to start to just write down the things that I've learned that I think would be useful for my children. And I did a lot of writing in that first couple of years. Then I got busy with work again and got more demanding jobs and was raising my kids and trying to figure myself out. Um, when I when I finally quit my job in 2021, I finished the book. I made it very intentional. I went on a alpine walkabout. I did a week in the Alps, leadership development training for myself in the Alps. And one of the outcomes was sit down and get this book finished. And so I did, and then published that in April of when was that? April of 24. And this book is called Purposeful Living: Wisdom from Coming of Age in Complex Times. And gave it to my kids and thought, well, if I'm going to, do it for my kids, I might as well make it available to the public as well. And I think it encompasses a lot of my philosophy in general that I think can be very useful for anybody. But its specific target is people coming of age or people raising or guiding those coming of age.
Ah, okay.
So I've had a lot of good feedback on it, and as we were talking right before we hit the record button, I need to get the audiobook finished. I've had several people reach out to me. Hey, I don't read, I don't listen. Can you get the audiobook finished? So that's almost done now, but there's a lot of wisdom in there. It's a good process. I learned a lot. I made every mistake you can imagine. And, there's a lot I didn't know about that aspect, but I feel really proud that I got something done, even though it wasn't perfect. A lot of mistakes in it as well, but got something out there and got something that my kids have read and can use, and a lot of other parents and young people both that have used and been guided by this. I was speaking at an event last week in Jacksonville for high school students from really challenging communities that are really underserved communities, underprivileged communities, but kids that are working really hard to try to get a leg up, and mention this book. And almost all of them are like, "Hey, can you send me a PDF copy of that so I don't have to buy it?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, of course." But to be able to be of service in that way too. And yeah, so that feels good. There's probably other books in me at some point as well. But that's felt good to have put something down and have that available for my kids and for others that it can benefit.
That's
And it's
great.
available out there on all the normal places, right?
Right. Well, I would be remiss as long as we're talking about all the different aspects of your business, kind of your foundational blocks that you have that go along with it.
Yeah.
I would be absolutely remiss as two podcasters if I didn't ask about the podcast.
Yeah.
So, what role does the podcast play in your overall,
Mm.
sort of business plan?
Yeah, that's a great question because I started the podcast because I felt like I had a story to tell that could be useful to others.
Okay.
Um, I continue the podcast because I love doing the podcast. I love the authentic connections. I love the people that I'm meeting. I love the wisdom that I get to share, the wisdom that I get to learn from others. It's a very high rated podcast. It's top 5% in the world and listens as well, even though it's still much smaller than I would like it to be. But in the business plan, I feel like the podcast it's two or three things. I mean, it's meeting really interesting people that I can learn from, they can learn from me, and maybe they become coaching clients or crossing clients directly. It's also has its first sponsor. Like you have one sponsor, I have one sponsor as well. Which is really great, and that pays for the production costs because I do have an editor and stuff that I pay for to do that. But so I do, and I hope that at some point, and I have a list of even sponsors that I align with my values and my adventure and stuff that I would love to work with
Yeah.
going forward. So I hope at some point the podcast pays for itself directly, and it gives me a lot of practice. It gives me a lot of reps with sharing wisdom, clarifying my own thinking when I do the solo episodes, and an authentic connection with others, which then supports my coaching and the crossing events and the group coaching events that I do as well. I had thought last year when I was walking through this dark year last year and the podcast wasn't paying for itself and I didn't have a sponsor yet, I thought, well, maybe I should quit it.
Oh, yeah.
And this is one of those things where we have to learn to start to trust ourselves, right? Financially, economically, it didn't make any sense to continue the podcast. But I went on the Appalachian Trail because that was one thing that was calling to me that really felt like it was bringing me joy. So I went and hiked the most rugged part of the Appalachian Trail in September last year, the 100-mile wilderness at the north end of Maine, and had so much wonderful time with myself, with God, with nature. And it was really clear. No, keep the podcast. Why? Because you love it and make it profitable. So now it's
Right.
break even, right? And 6 months later, and eventually I think it will be really profitable as well. But the main reason that I do it is because the authentic connection, which is true to my values and the people that I get to meet through the podcast, it's been really amazing, and the people that it's helping as well. Right?
Right.
That's the driver. So I hope and expect that at some point it also pays tremendously well as well.
It can.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
can, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, I do this full time. I'm living proof, man. It
That's
absolutely
awesome.
can.
Like I
So,
said, I gotta learn a little bit more from you, Rory, as we go here. Learn a little bit more on the business aspect and the longevity. But I'm committed to it. I love doing it. We just went to 2 a week as we were talking about,
right on.
which is fun, and I think a pretty good cadence. I have one with a guest on Thursdays, and then I have one solo episode on Tuesdays every week.
Hmm.
And the solo episodes are a little bit more fresh. I mean, the guests, I have so many people wanting to be on this podcast now. I think I'm recorded out through October already.
There you go.
So that, but again, it's interesting, folks, and I'm having having a lot of fun doing it, and making a lot of benefit for the people that are listening as well. So
Right on. Beautiful, beautiful.
yeah,
What sort of criteria are you using for the folks who come on the show? What are you looking for in a guest that,
yeah,
because people may hear this and go, well, I'd like to be on that podcast, right?
yeah.
What are you
So
looking for?
that's a great question. So here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for people that have some experience, some life transition that they've made a lot of meaning from, whether it's difficult, most of them are difficult, right?
Right.
That would be very useful to men in midlife trying to find meaning. All right. So I have a list of questions I do in every pre-interview that I go down through. But that's really the biggest one is I'll ask them about what do they feel like is the transition that they made in their life that's had the most meaning or they've made the most meaning from afterward.
Yeah.
And then I'll say specifically out of that, what would you bring to the audience that's going to help midlife men find meaning?
Hmm.
Those are the 2 primary criteria. And then quite frankly, I'm looking to add value to my listeners right then. This is not a podcast just to come on to sell more books. All right. So if I get that's the vibe from somebody, of course we can talk about their books and their experience. That's great. But if I get that's the vibe from somebody, that's not the podcast for them.
Right.
I can go get on a podcast with a much wider reach and sell a lot more books. And I want to deliver value I want to deliver value right then to the listeners
Right on.
that are listening to it. I value their time that much. I know we're all really busy. And if someone's going to spend 45 minutes listening to an episode, I want them to walk away with something that impacts their life.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's a big thing. That's a very big thing towards the longevity piece. When you're very conscious of what you're bringing for
Yeah.
your listener appreciates
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So good for you.
Yeah.
Uh,
So that's my focus. And I still, as I said, I still have a lot to learn. I don't know the business end of podcasting really. And I'm learning that as I go, and maybe there's, like I said, or maybe there's even things I can learn from you about that because, it is one of the aspects that I won't be letting go of. Like, I really hope I'm doing a podcast when I'm 90 years old,
right on.
it feels really good. Yeah. People talk, oh, what are you going to retire? I'm like, or they'll even say, and often in Florida, we're like, oh, you already retired. I said, no, I'm not retired. I moved from one career to the next, but there's no such thing as retirement. And retirement's not
Right.
healthy. It was made up to create work for younger people, to get people out of the workforce. But we still need to find ways to add value. That's otherwise life has no meaning.
Right on. Well, give it a little bit of grace and, take it with a grain of salt because I get that all the time. What do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a podcaster. Oh, so you're retired.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
no.
No, exactly.
I
Yeah.
have 7 podcasts right now.
Yeah.
Believe me, I'm the furthest thing from retired.
Right.
You know,
No, and that's,
but
but I think it's
yeah,
it's because that's, I'm curious for you too, Rory. What did you, I mean, you've been podcasting now for 4 years,
a little longer than
5 years,
that. Yeah, a little
5
longer
years,
than that.
and you've got a total of 700 shows out,
Yeah.
all the episodes.
You mean currently with the
Yeah.
podcasts I have?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more than that. I added them all up the other day with podcasts that I used to have that are no longer
Sure.
there,
Yeah, that's
the
fine. Yeah.
stuff that's still there, and all the guest episodes that I've done over time too. And it's over 2,000
Wow. So you have a
altogether. So
lot of experience.
yeah, I've
So
been doing a lot of this.
what was the impetus for you? Because you did something before that. So if it's 7 or 8 years you've been doing this, obviously you're about my age. So you had some other career before podcasting. What was
Uh-huh.
the impetus to change for you?
Well, yeah, if you want to find that out, you're just gonna have to bring me on your show and interview
Well,
me because
let's talk about that.
this is
Let's
my
talk
show,
about
man.
that.
All right,
Yeah, let's talk
all
about that.
right. You don't get to flip the script on me.
I'm curious now. I want to have this conversation. I guess we'll have to do my show, Rory. That's
Oh, I
fine.
love this. I love this. This guy's like, hey, you know what? I'll interview you. No, 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 no. Hang on a second. No, it's beautiful. I love that you asked the question. I'm happy to talk to you about it though. But this is your time and we're kind of running out of it. So I want to make sure
Yeah,
that we're
yeah.
getting your message out, man, because it's a fantastic message. It's
Thank
incredibly
you.
authentic. It's coming from your heart. It's obvious. And I want to support that, in every way that
Thank
I
you.
can. We can
Thank you.
never have enough men in this space of trying to help, other men. And I know that now you help men and women both, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Primarily focused on midlife men finding meaning because men are less connected than women,
Right.
sort of by nature and by the way we've set up society.
Yeah.
So I feel like midlife men are more at risk, right?
Yeah.
But I've had coaching clients that are women as well. And obviously, actually, one of the things, I have a lot of the wives of the men that are sending the men,
Oh yeah.
right? They're the little nudge, like my wife sending me to Workaholics Anonymous, right? Like they're, so they're, and people also ask, well, what about younger men? How do you help the younger men? I said, well, one, I have the book, but two, if the dads heal, if the dads show up
Right.
in their beauty and their glory and their humility and their strength, how do you think that impacts the younger men?
Right on.
I mean, it's the strongest impact you can have, right? The biggest gift I can give to my children is to do my own work. And so I
Very
help
true.
the other dads do their work.
Yeah.
But so it's primarily focused on midlife men finding meaning, but I have worked with women in the past as well. And I had this great podcast guest recently, and she's like, you need to do a crossing just for women. They need it too. You shouldn't be so, one sided. I said, well, there's a lot of place for that right now. This is the calling. And I feel like it's really important, that suicide is a leading cause of death for men in the UK. It's a leading cause of death for men under 50 in the United States. Deaths of despair are the leading cause of death for men in midlife in the United States. If you put all of them together, is a real need for us to start having real conversations and stop just the bullshit about the beer and how big our salaries are and everything else. I mean, it's fine to have that too, but we need to have real conversations and real connection and start living lives that are true to ourselves and meaningful to the communities that we're in. And
Yeah.
that's my mission, right? If I could, flip a switch and have every man have 2 or 3 guys that they felt they could call at 2 o'clock in the morning when they're crying for no reason,
Right.
or when they're having a heart attack or whatever, which by the way, half of the men in the United States do not have one person they feel like they could call at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
That would be great. And then we wouldn't have the suicides that are happening all around us as well. You talked about vets at the beginning, and yeah, all honor to them to preserve our way of life, but they're also very isolated, right? And
Yep.
there's such a high vet suicide because of that. And it's all because of isolation, right? And 12 step, if you're familiar with it, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection.
Well
And
said.
so that's my
Yeah.
mission, is to help build authentic connection.
Not enough of that out there for men. So
Yeah.
yeah, and all due respect to the women who are saying you should do a group for women. You can close your eyes, throw a nickel down the street, and you're going to hit 5 groups for women.
Yeah, exactly. And there's not for
Yeah.
men because we just don't think it's not like socially acceptable yet.
Right.
And I'm willing to be the stupid guy, the weird guy that says I don't give a shit if it's socially acceptable.
Right.
This is what we need. This is what
Somebody has
I
to go
need.
through that wall first, man.
Yes.
So
Right.
yeah, good for you. Now I support just carte blanche. I support any man who's out there trying to help other men,
Yeah.
and you're doing a good job of it. So,
Thank you.
I honestly, I'm incredibly impressed with everything you have going on.
Thank you.
And, I love that you came on this show to talk to folks about it. We are not each other's competition either,
No,
which
no.
men don't quite get because that's
Yeah,
all we do is
yeah,
compete and try to
yeah,
win. People who listen to me, if they're not working with me, they need to be working with somebody.
yeah,
And so if they
yeah,
aren't going to work with me, even though they're listening to my show, well, maybe they identify with you better and then they'll
yeah,
work with you. And
yeah.
brother, that is more important than anything else. Work with
Absolutely,
somebody,
absolutely.
get help. I don't care where you get it.
Yeah,
You
I
know
have a
what
coach that told me recently. She said collaboration is the new competition,
I mean?
and I think that's
Collaboration.
really true. Like in this space, it's how because it's exactly what you said, Rory. My message is going to be a little bit different than your message. Going to be a little bit different than Chip Connolly. Going to be a little bit different than Greg Scheinman or Connor Beaton or Tony Robbins, right?
Right.
But it doesn't mean there's not space. Why? Because somebody can hear you better than they can hear me. Somebody
Right.
can align with Tony Robbins better than they can align with you, right? Somebody at one year can hear Chip Connolly better than he can hear you, but the next year can hear you. So it's all we all need to be finding and sharing our gifts, right?
Right.
Our creativity. I love this is from Artist Way, Julia Cameron. Our creativity is God's gift to us. What we do with it is our gift back to God, back to the community,
Good quote. Yeah, I
right?
like that.
So, what are we doing to know ourselves well enough to find our gifts so that we can share them, right?
Love it.
Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey. You always come back to serve your community after you
Yeah.
go on your quest. So that's what I'm about. And I think there's, yeah, like you said, there's, hundreds of millions, billions of people that need that help. And if there's, 10 more guys in the pool that can help, then maybe there's 10 more guys that it can resonate with that there wasn't somebody out there that could resonate with before.
Love it. Well said. All right, I got one more question for you as
Yeah.
we kind of wrap things up. And you've been very generous with your time. Thank you for being on here, man.
Yeah.
But tell everybody, how can they reach you? How can they find your
Yeah.
programs, and so on?
Great. Thank you. Yeah. So artblanchford.com is a website that can take you to everything else, lifeintransitionpodcast.com. And I'm also on socials, just Art Blanchford or Life in Transition. DM me, email me at art@artblanchford.com. I'm like you, I don't have a staff taking care of stuff for me. I connect authentically with everybody that writes to me or emails to me, and that's the best way to reach me. Follow the podcast. If there's something of value, share it. That's one thing I'll say directly. Share this podcast, right? If you're loving what Rory does and you know some other guy that needs this information, share it with him. Might be the best thing that ever happens to him. So that's it's important. We all have a role to play.
Right on. All right. I'm going to kind of end with this. Is there anything that I didn't ask you? Is there anything that we talked about that you want to maybe double back on? Or do you have like a final nugget, a piece of advice for the guys listening? Anything like that that you want to leave? I'm going to give you the floor for the last minute or two. Go ahead and wrap
Awesome.
it up with whatever you think is appropriate. It's all yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Rory. The one thing I would say right now, guys, you're listening to this, there's a little nudge that you've been feeling, a little quiet voice. There's been something that's been saying, connect with this person or write this article or go walk this trail or go do the Camino. Listen to that voice. Take a step in that direction. Just the next step, whatever it is, take a step in that direction. And if it continues to make you feel alive, take another step. And if not, listen again and recognize for all of us, whether you admit this or not, or whether you know this or not, nature is the great healer, the great equalizer. You cannot spend more than 3 days in nature without completely de stressing. Lots of data to support this. All kinds. I could search, I could cite all kinds of studies, and I know it for myself. So listen to that voice. If you can't hear it, spend some time in nature. Spend some time in nature anyway, and start to pay attention to what you're feeling, not what you think you should be feeling.
Powerful stuff, man. Well said. All right, great wrap up. I knew you would do a great job with that. So I felt very confident handing you the mic for that last part there. All right, folks. I tell you what, midlife transition expert, speaker, author, and host of the hit podcast, Life in Transition. Go check it out. Art Blanchford. Art, thank you so much, man, for coming on here, telling your story, and just sharing so much of yourself with our listeners, man. I appreciate it. You've been great.
Hey, thank you, Roy. This has been an absolute pleasure to be on this podcast. So much fun. I really appreciate the authentic conversation and just the openness we've had here. I've been on a lot of podcasts. This was really great. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, gentlemen, that's been another fantastic episode of the Power of Man podcast. And the reason we have such powerful men on here with these unbelievably powerful messages is because we're united and hoping that you can find your power so that you can be a better protector, a better provider, a better leader tomorrow than you are today, so that you can become a better father, a better husband, a better man tomorrow than you are today. And the reason that we want that for you is because you matter. It's because you have value. And it's because at the end of the day, you are worth it. And at some point, you just have to believe it. Until next time.